Hey guys, tonight we step into a world where time doesn't quite behave the way you expect. You find yourself wandering through a narrow cobblestone path. The air cool and scented faintly of rosemary and rusted hinges. The sun has dipped just below the hills, casting long shadows that seem to stretch toward you with curious intent. And at the end of this dusky lane, nestled between a leaning bookshop and a mossy stone wall, is a clockmaker's shop, its wooden sign gently swaying on rusty chains. Creaking in time with no time at all. It's the kind of place you could walk right past and never notice. The kind of shop that disappears if you squint too hard or doubt too long. You probably wouldn't make it here if you were in a hurry. But tonight, you're not. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You open the door with a soft click, and it exhales a sigh like it's been waiting for you. The scent of varnished wood and old leather coats the air, warmed slightly by the faint ticking that, oddly enough, seems to be moving backwards. The clocks, dozens of them, line every wall, from grand old tower faces to tiny pocket watches. Each ticks in reverse, a chorus of second hands sweeping counterclockwise as though undoing something only they remember. Behind the counter sits a man with silver-threaded hair and round glasses that magnify his kind eyes. He doesn't speak, just nods as you step inside. His hands, delicate and calloused, are cupped gently around a broken watch whose face has been scratched away. He hums, not in melody, but in memory. You wander the shop slowly, watching the clocks unravel time like ribbons. One spins so fast it's almost still. Another ticks only when you're not looking. You pause in front of one with no hands at all. Its surface reflects not your face, but something quieter, like the feeling of remembering a moment you hadn't thought about in years. There's something strange here, not in a frightening way, but in a way that unsettles your certainties. And then you see it, a single clock mounted just above the door. Its pendulum swings like a heartbeat, but not backward, not forward, just there. The man behind the counter finally speaks, his voice low and slow, like a grandfather clock after midnight. Time isn't broken, he says, but sometimes it forgets how to listen. You look at him, puzzled. He gestures toward the ticking walls, toward the hush of the shop. Clocks are like children, he says. They need patience more than fixing. Outside, the night deepens. Inside, time slips off its shoes. He hands you a small brass key and nods toward a wooden door at the back of the shop. You hesitate, not out of fear, but out of reverence. What could possibly lie behind a door in a place where clocks unlearn the very shape of minutes? You step through, and everything softens. The ticking fades. The scent changes, cinnamon, maybe, and something sweetly old like dried lavender. The room is lined with tiny chairs. No adults, no clocks, just drawings on the wall, scribbles of stars and crooked suns and lopsided hearts. In the center is a table, and atop it, a single snow globe, half filled with swirling silver dust. You shake it gently. Inside is a miniature version of the shop. And as the flakes settle, you realize the door in the globe opens just a little wider. The man speaks again. From behind you now. They always leave a little of themselves here. Their wishes, their worries. You look around. Who? You ask. He smiles. The children. There's a long, gentle pause. Some bring me broken clocks. Some bring nothing at all. But they all leave lighter than they came. Not because I fix them, but because I listen. You settle into one of the small chairs. Your knees feel absurdly high. Your hands oversized, but it doesn't matter. Something in the silence invites you to stay. He tells you that the clocks in his shop don't measure seconds, they measure stories. That each backward tick is a step into a memory needing gentleness. Adults always want time to move forward. He murmurs. Children just wanted to stay. You glance around at the room again. At the tiny handprints on the wall. The faded footprints pressed into the wood floor like the echoes of small lives. It occurs to you, maybe healing time isn't about speeding it up, or even slowing it down. Maybe it's about pausing long enough to hear what it's been whispering all along. Some say time is a river, but maybe it's a garden. Maybe it grows best when you stop measuring it and start tending it. You don't notice the moment you start smiling, or the way your shoulders have loosened, your breath deepened, but you do notice something new, the clocks. Now ticking not in reverse, but in rhythm. Still gentle, still strange, but steady. You rise, and the snow globe on the table gives a tiny chime. The man nods. Tomorrow, he says, someone new will come in. But tonight, time remembers you. You walk out of the room and back into the shop. The ticking welcomes you like an old friend. The door behind you closes with a soft click. And for the first time in a long while, you feel like time isn't something chasing you, it's something walking beside you. The morning arrives not with fanfare, but with a warm golden hush, like butter melting across the face of a soft loaf of bread. You're already sitting in the clockmaker's shop when it happens, though you're not quite sure if you ever left. The light spills in from the front window, catching flecks of dust that dance like slow-motion snowflakes. The man is there, winding a grandfather clock that sighs with each turn. The sound is almost like a cat purring, familiar, patient, satisfied. There's a fresh cup of tea beside you now, one you don't remember brewing. It smells of rose hips and quiet courage. Then the bell above the door jingles, a sound so light it could be mistaken for the flutter of a bird's wing. In comes a boy no older than 7, holding a small mechanical bird in his cupped hands. Its wings are frayed, its little key missing, and its eyes, though glass, seem tired. He stands at the threshold for a moment, his socks mismatched, his face drawn like someone who's already said too many goodbyes for his age. He doesn't speak at first, just walks up to the counter and places the bird gently down. It won't sing anymore, he says, barely above a whisper, not since the yelling. The clockmaker doesn't ask for more. He simply kneels, placing his face level with the boy's. What do you miss about its song? The boy shrugs, but his eyes betray him. They water just slightly. It used to make my chest feel full, like someone was hugging me. But from the inside, the old man nods, not in answer, but in understanding. And then he does something peculiar. He motions for you to take the bird. You blink. Me? He just smiles and says, time doesn't fix on its own. It listens, and so should you. So you hold it, the little broken thing. It's light, lighter than it should be, but full of something else. Something invisible. You feel the smooth brass feathers against your palm. And then something odd happens. For a moment, you hear the faintest whistle. Not outside, not even in your ear, but within your ribs. The boy watches you with wide, hopeful eyes. What if? The clockmaker says gently, some things don't need repairing, just remembering? You glance at the bird again, and it seems softer now, less broken, or maybe it was never broken at all. Maybe it just stopped singing because no one was quiet enough to hear it anymore. You look at the boy. Would you like to wind it? He shakes his head. I'm scared. What if I do it wrong? Another pause, heavy and kind. Then it will teach us a different song. The clockmaker says, and that's okay, too. The boy steps forward, and you place the bird in his hands. He mimics the motion you just made, fingers gentler than most adults you know. The tiniest click, then silence, but not for long. A soft trill, no louder than a sleepy sigh, leaks from the bird's chest. It's not the melody you expected. It's slower, warmer. It doesn't fill the room. It wraps around it like a scarf. The boy presses the bird to his own chest and closes his eyes. And when he opens them, they're brighter, not fixed, but seen. "Thank you," he says. And the way he says it makes you wonder how long it's been since someone truly heard him. He leaves without another word, but the echo of his visit remains in the room like perfume after someone leaves the elevator, unexpected. Lingering, quietly beautiful. The clockmaker turns to you and pours more tea. "There are children," he says softly, "who carry broken things not because they don't work, but because no one ever asked why they stopped." You nod. There's nothing more to say. Only more to listen to. You wander back to the wall of clocks. One is ticking forward now. Another has stopped entirely. Yet somehow, this too feels right. Maybe not all things that stop need starting again. You see the reflection of the boy's bird in the glass of one clock. Its tiny wings move ever so slightly, like it's dreaming of skies it hasn't seen yet. And a thought drifts into your mind, slow and shapeless. What if the heart doesn't break, it just forgets its own rhythm? Maybe the key isn't to restart the ticking. Maybe it's to sit with the silence long enough that the rhythm comes back on its own. You look back at the clockmaker. He's scribbling something in a notebook, simple line drawings of hands. Not human, not mechanical, hands reaching, offering, and beneath one sketch, 3 words, "Wound by wonder." You smile, not because you understand, but because the understanding isn't the point. The listening is. The shop breathes with you. The clocks tick with you. And for the first time in a long while, you feel like time is curious about you, too. It's early evening when she arrives, her boots muddy, her face smudged with charcoal, and her satchel clinking with what sounds like marbles but turns out to be clock gears. Loose buttons, and tiny folded paper stars. She doesn't knock, doesn't pause. Just walks right in like the wind that pushes open a forgotten gate. You watch from the same armchair near the fire. A clock on the mantel ticks unevenly now, skipping every 3rd second like it's learning how to trust its own rhythm again. Outside, the sky bruises into lavender, and the village beyond the shop begins to whisper itself toward sleep. She tosses her satchel onto the counter and pulls out a notebook that's more tape than paper at this point. The cover is covered in faded stickers, moons, mushrooms, question marks, and inside are dozens of sketches. Clocks, mostly. Clocks with no numbers, some with tangled hands, others with sunflowers growing through the center. "This one," she says, holding up a page with a clock face half melted like a candle, "shows how time drips when you're waiting for someone to come home." You sit up, and this, she flips to another page, where the hands of the clock are pointing in opposite directions, as what it feels like when your parents argue and you pretend not to hear. She says all this with the calm of someone who's had to get comfortable with discomfort. Her eyes never fully meet yours, like she's always halfway in a different room. But when the clockmaker leans over the sketches, he doesn't ask her to explain. He just listens. She pulls out a small wooden clock. It's barely the size of an apple, and it's missing its hands. The ticking comes not from within, but from a tiny pencil she's attached to the top, tapping gently as it swings side to side. "I made it," she says, "to count time in stories instead of seconds." The pencil draws a line every time it ticks. Sure enough, you can see the graphite mark, faint, deliberate, on the paper roll beneath it. "How long have you been using it?" you ask. She shrugs. "Since I stopped needing the real kind." The shop is silent except for the pencil's gentle tap tap tap. It reminds you of raindrops on a rooftop or a finger against a window, asking to be let in. The clockmaker holds the handmade timepiece up to his ear, then closes his eyes. "It tells the truth," he says, "in ways most clocks forget." The girl doesn't smile exactly, but her shoulders shift, as if some invisible backpack has grown lighter. You reach out to trace one of her sketches. The clock face has no numbers, only symbols, hearts, spirals, and a question mark at the top where 12 would normally sit. What does this one mean? You ask. She tilts her head. It's the feeling you get when someone's late. But you still hope. You exhale through your nose. Gently. It's not quite a laugh. More like recognition. She sits on the floor now, cross-legged, pulling gears from her satchel and arranging them like puzzle pieces. The clockmaker joins her. No one speaks for a long while. Not because there's nothing to say, but because some silences are sacred. You lean back and watch as they tinker and trace. Not fixing, but translating. Time, it seems, has many dialects, and children are fluent in the ones adults forgot. As the evening deepens, the light in the shop turns golden, then amber, then something the color of faded memories. You notice one of her sketches has a clock with petals instead of hands, each petal labeled with a feeling: joy, ache, wonder, regret, stillness. What if clocks could tell you how you feel? She muses aloud. Instead of when to be somewhere? The thought lands gently. You imagine a world where you wear a watch not to chase appointments, but to check in on your soul. Some say time is linear, but maybe it spirals. Maybe it's a quiet garden path you walk barefoot, and every loop brings you closer not to a destination, but to yourself. The girl finishes assembling something small, a button-sized timepiece, but instead of ticking, it spins a paper wheel with tiny affirmations. You are safe. You are not late. You are loved anyway. She hands it to you without a word, just a nod, like she's placing a message in a bottle and setting it adrift into your care. You hold it close and feel a lump rise quietly in your throat, not of sadness, but of recognition. This, too, is a kind of clock, one that tells not the time, but the truth. The girl gathers her things, zipping her satchel slowly, as if every tooth of the zipper is a step back into the world beyond this shop. Before she leaves, she looks at you for the first time fully, squarely. You don't have to chase time, she says. Sometimes, if you wait, it circles back. The bell above the door chimes as she disappears into the night. But the pencil clock she made still ticks in your ear. The rhythm gentle, handmade, alive. You glance at the clockmaker. He's smiling faintly, his hands resting in his lap. Children draw tomorrows, he says, and sometimes, they invite us in. You sip your tea. It's gone cold, but not bitter. The kind of cool that tastes like memory. Outside, a breeze moves through the street. The hour doesn't announce itself, but it hums, and you feel it, not passing, not pressuring, just being. Time, it seems, has started listening to you, too. The rain arrives not with thunder, but with a soft tapping, almost like the pencil clock from last night. Only gentler, more hesitant, as if the sky is uncertain whether it's okay to weep here. You're sitting on a stool near the workbench, thumbing a gear between your fingers, when the door creaks open again. A boy steps inside, soaked from head to toe, his coat hanging off one shoulder like it gave up halfway through the walk. He doesn't carry anything in his hands, but clutched to his chest, beneath the folds of fabric, is something delicate: his silence. His eyes scan the room, pausing not on the clocks or the glimmering brass, but on the hourglass that sits in the center of the shop's back table. A strange piece. You've noticed it before, tall, slender, elegant, but what always unsettled you was its stillness. No sand, no flow, just two glass chambers with nothing in between. It was as though it never had time to begin with. The boy says nothing. He walks straight to it and places both hands on either side of the frame. His lips move, but there's no sound. A prayer without words. You don't interrupt, neither does the clockmaker. After a long while, the boy whispers, "I waited, but she didn't wake up." A pause. He swallows. "I thought, if I kept counting, maybe time would give her back." Your heart stirs, not the aching, dramatic kind, but the soft kind. the kind that folds in on itself like a petal closing at dusk. The clockmaker joins him beside the hourglass. He doesn't speak, only gently runs his fingers along the rim. The glass, though empty, glows faintly under his touch. Some things, he says, don't pass through time, they wait beside it. The boy looks up, eyes rimmed red. Then why does it hurt like she's getting farther away? The shop feels heavier now. Not in grief, but in gravity, as though everyone has leaned a little closer to the floor. Closer to truth. The clockmaker reaches into a drawer and pulls out a vial of fine white dust. It shimmers faintly, like crushed seashells or powdered stars. He holds it out to the boy. "This is memory dust," he says quietly, "made from stories people whisper when they think no one hears." The boy doesn't smile, but his hands tremble as he accepts it. "May I?" he asks. The clockmaker nods. With careful fingers, the boy unscrews the top and pours the dust into the upper chamber. It rests there, unmoving, but not inert, like a breath held just before a word. Then something strange happens. A single grain falls. Then another. Slow, deliberate, like time choosing, not rushing. The boy stares, breath hitching. But it was broken. It never moved. The old man kneels beside him. Time doesn't always move by itself. Sometimes, it needs your permission. The grains fall slower than any you've ever seen. Each one could be a name. A bedtime song. A brush of a mother's hand against a child's cheek. You can't be sure, but the boy watches them like they're sacred. And maybe they are. You kneel beside him. "What happens when it runs out?" you ask softly. He doesn't look away. "I don't think it will." "Not really." You sit in silence together. The three of you, watching each memory fall. And somehow, the room grows brighter. Not from light, but from clarity. You think about all the times you've tried to rush grief. To shove it forward so you wouldn't have to feel it anymore. But this boy, with his quiet courage, shows you a different rhythm. Not healing by forgetting, but healing by allowing. Some say time heals all wounds. But maybe it's not the time that does the healing. Maybe it's the listening. The space we give ourselves inside the pause. You glance up at the hourglass. The dust continues to fall, gently, slowly, meaningfully. And then, something unexpected. A whisper. Not from the boy. Not from the clockmaker. Not from you. A voice, soft as wind through tall grass. You can't make out the words, but the feeling is unmistakable. Peace. The boy stands slowly. He places the vial, now empty, on the table beside the hourglass and steps back. "Thank you," he says, his voice steadier now, "not for fixing it, for sitting with me while it stayed broken." He walks to the door, then pauses. "I'll come back, when I'm ready." The bell chimes as he leaves, and the sound seems to echo longer than usual, as if time itself is waving goodbye. The clockmaker turns to you, brushing dust from his fingers. "Some children come with things to be repaired," he says. "Others come carrying pauses. Either way, they leave a little lighter." You nod, still watching the hourglass. The dust continues to fall, not as a countdown, but as a rhythm. One that hums beneath the surface of your own breath now. You think back to the girl with her pedaled clock, the boy with his wind-up bird, and now, this hourglass boy, who taught you that stillness isn't failure, it's invitation. What if the moments we fear losing are not lost, but waiting to be felt again in smaller, quieter ways? Outside, the rain eases, not stops, just softens. The sound shifts from tapping to whispering, and in it, you hear the echo of every child who ever waited for time to give something back. The hourglass ticks without ticking, and somehow, that's enough. The shop is quieter the next morning, wrapped in that hushed stillness that usually only follows snow or answered prayers. The clocks tick gently around you, some forward, some backward, some in hesitant intervals like they're still deciding how they feel about time today. You're sipping something warm from a mug that says, "Yesterday called." But I didn't answer. When the door creaks open once again. This time, there's no rush of wind. No trail of rain behind the visitor. Just a girl. Small. Deliberate. Maybe 10 years old. She walks in as if she knows this place. Or perhaps, like it once belonged to her. Her shoes are neatly laced. Her dress is pressed, but faded at the edges like it's been worn for far more moments than one would expect. Around her neck, hanging by a faded ribbon, is a silver locket in the shape of a pocket watch. It gleams in the morning light, but doesn't tick, doesn't open either. She doesn't head to the counter. She walks directly to the display case near the back, the one filled with clocks that never left. Or perhaps, the ones that were never meant to. You follow her with your eyes, sensing the weight she carries. Not on her back, not in her hands, but in her waiting. She stands there for a long time, fingers wrapped around the locket. The clockmaker approaches, his steps soft as always. "Still won't open?" he asks gently. The girl shakes her head. "It's locked, always has been." He kneels beside her, not trying to take it, not even reaching out. "And what do you think is inside?" She shrugs. "Something I'm not ready for. I guess, maybe a goodbye." There's silence, not the awkward kind, but the full kind. The kind that holds room for breath. You watch from your corner, the warmth from your mug anchoring you to the moment. You sense it now, the subtle shift. How each child who enters isn't here to be fixed, but to remember. The girl's voice is barely a whisper. "My mom gave it to me the day she left. She said I'd know when to open it. And you still don't?" She glances down. "I don't want to hear the words in there. If they're what I think they are, they'll make it real." The clockmaker nods as if that makes perfect sense. Which it does. Some truths don't shatter us because they're loud. They shatter us because we've known them quietly for so long. He pulls a small mirror from the display shelf. Not a perfect one. The edges are chipped, and it reflects with that silvery haze old glass collects over the years. He offers it to her. She hesitates, then takes it, and when she holds it up, the locket begins to hum. Not loud, just enough. Enough to make your skin feel like it's listening too. The girl's fingers shake. "Do I have to open it?" she asks. "No," the clockmaker says. "But you can, if you're ready." A long pause. She closes her eyes. Then, slowly, gently, she tugs the tiny clasp on the side. A soft click, like a sigh. The lid opens. Inside is a piece of folded parchment, no larger than a postage stamp. She unfolds it, reads it, closes her eyes again. You watch as her shoulders drop, not in defeat, but in relief, as if she's been holding a breath for years and finally found the edge of the exhale. She hands the paper to the clockmaker. He doesn't read it aloud, just nods, then places it in a drawer labeled "Moments That Mattered." The girl clutches the now empty locket. You expect tears, but instead, she smiles. Small, real. "It didn't say goodbye," she whispers. "It said, begin again." You feel something shift in your chest, like a key turning, not to open a door, but to unlock a thought you hadn't dared to believe. What if endings are just time's way of clearing space for a softer beginning? The girl reaches into her pocket and pulls out a gear, silver. Simple, but perfectly formed. "I think it belongs here," she says, placing it on the counter. The clockmaker inspects it, then nods. "It's from a tomorrow," he says, "one that was waiting for you." She laughs softly, and the sound reminds you of wind chimes on a porch that's seen every season. She walks to the door, then looks back. "I'll come visit," she says, "not because I need fixing, just to say hello." The bell chimes as she leaves, and this time, it echoes forward, like the tick of a clock that finally knows where it's going. You sit still for a long time. You think of all the lockets we carry. The invisible ones, the silent ones, The words trapped inside that we avoid opening because we're afraid of what they'll confirm. But maybe, just maybe, those tiny, silent burdens aren't filled with endings. Maybe they hold beginnings too fragile to shout. Some say time is a ticking bomb. But maybe, just maybe, it's a sealed letter. And when you're ready, you open it, and what you find changes everything. The clockmaker walks past you, setting the silver gear on the workbench. He hums an unfamiliar tune, one that sounds suspiciously like hope. And in the stillness, you feel it. Time doesn't heal by moving forward. It heals by allowing you to move at your own rhythm. Your own moment, your own readiness. The clocks continue to tick. And for the first time, they don't feel like they're counting down. They feel like they're counting with you. There are days in the clockmaker's shop when time seems to vanish altogether, not slow, not pause, but gently slip out the back door without a sound. Today is one of those days. The clocks do not tick. The pendulums hang still as frozen breath. Even the wind outside has forgotten how to whistle. It's as though the entire world has curled up under a blanket and decided not to speak. You notice it first with your tea. Usually, by the third sip, the warmth fades and the steam disappears. But today, the cup stays hot, its spiral of vapor lingering above like a ribbon suspended in amber. The clockmaker doesn't seem surprised. He simply lays out a velvet cloth on the counter and begins placing small tools in a row, tiny screwdrivers, brushes, pieces of silk, tools for cleaning. But today, they are unused. He doesn't move to fix anything. He just sits. And so do you. For a long while, you sit in silence together, eyes resting on nothing in particular. There is something sacred in this shared stillness. Like monks in a temple made of brass and memory. Then, a knock. Not from the door, but the window. 3 soft taps. A child peers in. A boy with thick curls and eyes too large for his face. You open the door and he shuffles in. No bag, no toy, no clock, just a presence. He doesn't say much, just looks around, brows furrowed like he's listening for something that isn't speaking. After a moment, he turns to you. Did the clocks stop because I stopped? You're taken aback, unsure how to answer. The clockmaker gestures to the chair beside him, and the boy sits. I think I broke time, he says, serious as a thundercloud. I got too sad, and it went away. He says it like someone who once believed the moon only shined for him, and now it won't come back. The clockmaker nods slowly, as if this theory holds weight. What were you doing when it stopped? The boy stares at his knees. I was waiting. For what? He shrugs. Someone to come home. You understand, in that moment, that the boy isn't talking about time the way most people do. For him, time isn't numbers. It's presence, attention, a hallway light left on, the sound of someone humming in the next room. When she stopped coming, he says, I stopped keeping track. You glance around the room. Every clock is quiet, every hand suspended mid-thought. I tried counting days, he continues, but they didn't feel like anything. Just blank pages. The clockmaker leans forward. So you came here. The boy nods. I thought maybe someone kept the time I lost. And there it is. That aching truth we all carry, that somewhere, the moments we missed are still alive, waiting to be acknowledged. The old man stands and walks to the back of the shop. He returns with a simple box. No labels, no hinges, just 4 small notches on each side. He opens it. Inside, a pile of blank slips of paper, a small pencil, and a tiny bell. He places it before the boy. These, he says, are non-minutes. You don't count them, you fill them. The boy frowns. Fill them with what? Anything. The clockmaker shrugs. A sound, a color, a wish, a joke, a breath. You lean in, like, making time instead of keeping it? The clockmaker nods. Exactly. The boy picks up the pencil and begins. On the first slip, he draws a balloon. On the second, a turtle. On the third, the word, soon. He pauses, then picks up the bell and rings it once. The sound is soft, almost shy, but it travels through the room like the first raindrop after drought. You hear a clock click, then another. Slowly, softly, the shop begins to breathe again. Not all at once, not in rhythm, but gently, like it's stretching after a long nap. The boy smiles faintly, then rings the bell once more. This time, a cuckoo clock releases its tiny bird, which peeks out, yawns, and disappears again. Time is not restored, but it is acknowledged. The boy continues filling slips, each one unique, a red scribble, a question mark, the word, maybe. Each bell chime is a heartbeat, and with every one, the room grows fuller, not louder, just more present. Eventually, he stops. He places the pencil back in the box and looks at you. "Can I leave some here?" he asks, in case someone else forgets how. The clockmaker smiles and nods. "We'll keep them safe." He places the slips gently into a drawer labeled "Uncounted Gifts." Before leaving, the boy turns once more. "I think time just wanted me to say something." "And what did you say?" you ask. He shrugs. "I said hello, and thank you." Then he's gone. You sit with the clockmaker in silence again. But it's different now, richer. The kind of silence that comes after music, when the notes still linger in the air. You realize then that some days aren't for moving forward. They're for holding space. Some say time is wasted when we do nothing. But maybe those are the very moments that repair us. Maybe time, like children, sometimes just wants to sit beside someone who doesn't need it to perform. And maybe today was exactly enough. The clocks begin the day with an odd rhythm. Not one shared beat, but a layered chorus, like a room full of people humming different lullabies at once. None of them in sync, yet somehow, all in harmony. You listen closely, wondering if they're trying to say something, or simply remembering a dream they haven't yet woken from. It's just before midday when the children arrive, not one, not two, but a quiet procession of them. Each walks alone, and yet, somehow, they move together. Their feet make no sound on the wooden floorboards. They look ahead, not at the clocks or you or the clockmaker, but towards something just beyond the edge of the room. And then they speak, not in chatter, not even in full sentences, but in echoes. The first child whispers something, and before the words finish forming, a second child, standing behind him, repeats the exact same phrase. A third finishes it. A fourth begins again. It's like listening to a memory ripple back and forth across a lake. Their words aren't clear at first, just fragments. "She said she'd be right back, back. I waited under the stair. He used to sing when it rained. You feel it in your chest. That strange ache that doesn't come from pain, but from recognition. These aren't just echoes. They're remnants. Sentences that were never answered. Promises never fulfilled. The sort of things children carry until they believe they were never meant to speak them aloud." The clockmaker closes his eyes. He knows what this is. They've come to be heard. He says softly, "And echoes need anchors." You ask what that means, and he gestures toward a cabinet beneath the counter. Inside are dozens of small wooden boxes, each one marked with a single word. Said, left, soon, wait. You take one out. The word on yours is, when? The box is surprisingly light. You lift the lid and find inside only a small stone and a folded paper with the imprint of a child's voice pressed into it. Not literal sound, but you feel the echo, like a warm breath across your ear. The clockmaker hands out more boxes, one to each child. No instructions, no explanations, and yet, they all seem to understand. They sit in a circle, boxes on their laps. The room is still, not because sound is absent, but because everything present is listening. And one by one, the children begin to speak. Not full confessions, not rehearsed lines, just small, trembling thoughts. I told him I hated him the night before he left. I never got to say thank you for the strawberry cake. I waited by the phone every day for 3 summers. Each voice triggers an echo in another child. A shared ache, a mirrored longing, and with each repetition, the burden seems to soften. The clockmaker writes nothing down. He simply nods after each story. His eyes shimmer, but not from tears, from memory. You notice your box glowing faintly. You open the paper again. This time, you hear a whisper, your own voice. Younger, asking a question that never received an answer. When will it stop hurting? You don't cry, but something inside of you releases. Like a knot finally loosening. You don't need the answer. The asking was enough. The children continue. The air grows warmer, not in temperature, but in tenderness. Like the room itself is learning to exhale after holding its breath for too many years. Somewhere between one voice and the next, a clock on the far wall chimes, not harshly, but like a bell rung underwater. Slow, full, grounding. One child stands, walks over to her box, closes it, and whispers, "It's quieter now." The others follow. One by one, they close their boxes, place them on the shelf labeled, "Heard." You expect them to leave, but they don't. They laugh, not loudly, but sincerely. One tells a joke that doesn't quite make sense, and the others giggle anyway. A boy pulls out a harmonica and plays 3 wrong notes, grinning as if he meant to all along. The echoes, once heavy, begin to bounce, not out of grief, but out of play. And then you realize, these children were not only echoing sorrow, they were echoing themselves, parts they thought had been lost to silence, parts that only needed permission to be loud again. The clockmaker turns to you. You hear them now, don't you? You nod. They were never gone, just buried. He pours tea into small ceramic cups for the children, handing them out like offerings. Each child drinks, smiling over the rim, the steam curling upward like small blessings. Some say time forgets, but maybe time simply waits for you to remember. Eventually, the children rise, stretch, and leave. No fanfare, just contentment, a quiet knowing, like letters slipped under a door. The shop feels both emptier and fuller, as though every clock absorbed the echo of a soul and tucked it into its gears. You look around. Tick, tock, tick. All the clocks now move in harmony, not synchronized, but together, like voices in a choir, each carrying its own note, but part of something larger. You breathe deeply, the kind of breath that dusts off corners inside your chest you didn't know you'd abandoned. And in that breath, you hear it, your own echo, not of pain, but of presence. Still here, still you. The day drapes itself in mist, the kind that curls around lampposts and seeps into the sleeves of your coat. The village is hushed, as though everyone has chosen to speak only in nods. Even the shop's window seems to fog from the inside, as though the warmth within is too tender to let go. You sit by the window, tracing invisible shapes on the glass with the back of your knuckle. When you hear it, a sound so small, it nearly doesn't register. A tick, but not from any of the clocks on the walls. This one comes from a small boy in the doorway, holding something wrapped in cloth. He steps in slowly, his shoes dripping faint trails onto the floor. His eyes are the same color as the mist outside, soft, uncertain. He approaches the counter, unwraps the cloth, and reveals a metronome. Wooden, worn, silent. You've seen one before. Musicians use them to keep time. But this one is still. Like a heartbeat that once raced but now merely remembers motion. The boy looks up. I used it to help my dad remember the rhythm of everything. The clockmaker doesn't rush to respond. He lifts the metronome gently, runs his fingers along the edge. Does he still play? He asks. The boy shakes his head. He listens now, but only on the inside. A beat. He's sick. The boy adds. The kind where he forgets which time is now. The words fall like snow, quiet, weightless, yet deeply felt. You exhale slowly, suddenly aware of how loud your own thoughts have been lately. The clockmaker winds the metronome slowly, careful not to force anything. The pendulum clicks once, then stops. He tries again. Stillness. It only ticks. The boy says softly, when someone else is beside him. You look at the boy's hands, small, ink-stained, trembling ever so slightly. You wonder how long he's been holding the rhythm for someone else. The old man nods, as if this makes perfect sense. He walks over to the grand piano in the corner, lifts the cover, and presses a single key. A note rings out, clear, unhurried. He sets the metronome atop the piano. It doesn't move, not yet. Then he gestures for the boy. The child climbs onto the bench, sits beside him, presses a key, another. Still, the metronome stays frozen. The clockmaker places his hand over the boy's, guides it, gently. A simple melody begins to form. No lyrics, just sound, just feeling. And then, tick, the pendulum sways. Left, right, not fast, not perfect, but present. You watch as the boy plays. Brow furrowed in focus. The old man doesn't lead or follow. He simply accompanies. Tick, tock, tick. You realize the metronome isn't keeping time, it's joining it. Responding not to pressure, but to presence. You remember now what the clockmaker once said. Time doesn't fix on its own. It listens. Perhaps this is what he meant. The boy finishes the melody. Nothing dramatic, just a final note, like a full stop on a sentence whispered into the night. The metronome slows, stops. The silence afterward is not empty, it's held. My dad, the boy whispers, used to say music made him remember colors. The clockmaker smiles, and now you helped time remember him. The boy raps the metronome again. This time, more gently. He places it back into his bag and clutches it to his chest. Before he leaves, he looks around the shop. Do you think, he asks, that time has ears? You nod slowly. Yes, but only when you speak softly enough for it to lean in. He smiles, not wide, not for show, just enough to say thank you without words. Then he's gone, the bell chiming behind him like a final note. You sit beside the piano now, running your fingers across the keys. Not playing, just feeling. The shop feels warmer. You turn to the clockmaker. Was the metronome broken? He chuckles. No, just waiting. You sip your tea, lukewarm now, but still fragrant. You let it rest on your tongue. Let it linger the way some memories do. What if time doesn't want to be measured at all? What if it wants to be heard? Some say rhythm is something you follow. But maybe rhythm is something you build together. In pauses, in proximity, in the music only two people can make when they stop trying to rush the song. You look around the shop. The clocks are still ticking. But beneath their ticks, you hear something more. A harmony, a breath, a metronome, still swinging, somewhere in the heart of someone remembering a song. And somehow, you feel it too. The clockmaker begins the morning by watering the potted plants along the windowsill, tiny green things with curling leaves and crooked stems that somehow always lean toward the light. Even when the skies stay gray for days, you watch him tend to each one like an old friend. A sprinkle here, a whispered word there, a moment of stillness in between. The clocks around the room tick on gently. Today, they're all in agreement, each one ticking in a slow, content rhythm, as if the shop has finally settled into its own heartbeat. You're stirring honey into your tea when the door opens with a hesitant creak. A teenage girl steps in, tall and thin as a birch tree, her hands stuffed deep into her hoodie pockets. She doesn't look around like most do. Instead, she walks directly to the grandfather clock by the door and sits on the floor beside it. Not to fix it, not to question it, just to be near it. You glance at the clockmaker. He gives no instructions, no greeting. He simply nods, as if this too was expected. The girl says nothing for a while. Her breathing is shallow, her gaze distant. Finally, she speaks. "I think I'm stuck." Her voice is flat but not cold, more like someone who's run out of tone. Out of inflection, out of ways to dress up the truth. Everyone keeps moving. She continues. Graduating, loving, starting over. But I'm still in the hallway, waiting for something that never came. You feel those words settle in the room like a low fog, soft, but impossible to ignore. The clock beside her ticks slowly, its pendulum moving like a breath half held. "I used to believe," she says, "that time was a staircase. Just keep climbing and you'll get somewhere. But now it feels like I'm on an escalator going the wrong direction. And I'm tired of walking." The clockmaker sits on the floor beside her, knees creaking as he lowers himself with care. "Maybe you're not stuck," he says gently. "Maybe you're pausing." She scoffs softly. "What's the difference?" He leans back against the wood of the old clock, his eyes distant. "Stuck feels like punishment. Pause feels like choice. But I didn't choose this," she whispers. He nods, not consciously. "Maybe, but maybe some part of you knew you needed to rest." The girl blinks fast, like someone trying not to cry in a public place. "I didn't mean to fall behind." The clockmaker smiles gently. "There's no race, just a rhythm." You find yourself moving closer, sitting on the edge of the bench nearest to them. The grandfather clock looms above, its carved wood warm with age. You look at its face, 12 numbers, 2 hands, and yet somehow, it feels less like a machine and more like a companion. The girl pulls something from her pocket, a folded photograph. She doesn't open it, just turns it over in her hands. "I thought healing would feel more like sunrise," she says, "but it's just gray." The clockmaker nods slowly. Gray is still a color. And sometimes, it's the one that teaches you to see all the others. She finally looks up, not at him, but at you. "Do you ever feel like your clock's running, but you're not in it?" You don't answer right away. Instead, you glance around the shop, the ticking, the tea, the soft dust floating in the light. "I think," you say softly, "that sometimes our clock hands are moving inside us. Just very, very slowly." She breathes in through her nose, out through her mouth. "That's what I'm afraid of. That I'll miss everything while I'm trying to catch up." The clockmaker stands and walks behind the counter. He pulls out something from beneath, a simple wooden disc, no bigger than a saucer. Etched into it are 3 words, "Still counts here." He hands it to her. "This is a resting timepiece," he says. "It doesn't move, it doesn't tick, but it records every breath you take while holding it." She turns it over, skeptical. "How?" He grins. "Not in numbers, in quiet. You hold it, and it holds you." She takes it, holds it to her chest. You hear nothing, see nothing change, but her shoulders fall, just a little. And that little is enough. Some say if you're not moving forward, you're falling behind. But maybe, just maybe, staying still is another way of arriving, gently, on your own terms. She sits for a while longer, silent, tracing the edge of the wooden disc with her thumb. Then she stands. "Can I take it with me?" The clockmaker nods. "Bring it back when your breath feels lighter." She half smiles. "Might be a while. That's what it's for." She heads for the door. But before stepping through, she turns. "Thanks for not trying to fix me." The bell chimes as she disappears into the fog. You look back at the grandfather clock. Tick, tick, but now, it sounds less like time passing, and more like time pausing with purpose. You turn to the clockmaker. "She didn't ask for anything." You say. "She didn't have to." He replies. "Sometimes, all we need is permission to feel like we're not broken." The room hums gently, the warmth stretching across every corner. Maybe, just maybe, pausing isn't weakness. Maybe it's wisdom. Evening comes slowly, as if reluctant to close the day. The light filters through the tall front windows in streaks of amber and lavender, painting the shop in soft gradients. Every clock on the walls catches the gold in its glass, glowing just enough to remind you that even machines know how to bask in beauty when the hour is right. You and the clockmaker sit quietly in the back room, sharing the last of the tea. The steam rises, slow and lazy, like a story that's in no rush to end. You've stopped checking the time, not out of defiance, but because it doesn't seem to matter here. The hours pass gently, without taking anything from you, like waves that kiss the shore but never pull the sand too far away. Then, one last visitor. A little girl, maybe 5 or 6, small, with tangled hair and one sock rolled lower than the other. She pushes the door open like it weighs more than her. Which, in this moment, it might. She holds no clock, no item to repair, just a drawing. Crayon lines swirl across the page in childlike chaos, red, yellow, blue, and something that might have once been green before her fingers smudged it into murky wonder. She holds it up to the clockmaker. "I made this," she announces. "It's what I think time looks like." He takes it as if receiving a sacred scroll, studies it seriously, nods. "I see joy," he says. She frowns. "But it's messy." He smiles. "So is joy." She climbs up on a stool, legs swinging. You sit beside her, careful not to disturb her gravity. "I thought time was a straight line," she says, matter of fact, like a road. "But then my birthday came and it didn't feel any different. So maybe it's like a soup instead." You blink. The clockmaker chuckles. "Explain the soup." She shrugs. "Some bits float, some sink, some you forget are there until your spoon hits them. But they're all in the same bowl." You stifle a laugh, then realize she's not wrong. She hands him the drawing. "Can you hang it up?" "Of course," he says, pinning it on the wall above the workbench, right where time can see itself. She looks pleased. Then she reaches into her tiny backpack and pulls out a rock. "This is my time rock," she declares. "I found it on a day when I was sad and it made me feel strong." The rock is nothing special, rounded, gray, a little chipped, but in her hand, it becomes sacred. She hands it to you. "I want to leave it here, in case someone else has a bad day." You hold it. It's warm, like it's been holding her emotions for a long time and now needs a place to rest. The clockmaker sets it in a shallow wooden bowl labeled, "Carried for you." The girl swings her legs a little more, then looks around the shop. There's a lot of clocks. You nod. "Yes." She squints. "But none of them are scary." You smile. "No, they're good clocks. They don't yell." She taps her chin. "If I ever get lost in time, I'll come here, 'cause I think this is where time comes to nap." The clockmaker bows his head slightly. "You'd be welcome anytime." The girl slides off the stool, brushes crumbs off her dress that no one saw fall, and heads toward the door. But before she leaves, she turns to you. "Don't forget," she says, pointing to your chest, "your time is still being written." You nod. "I won't." She grins. "Good, 'cause you have really nice letters." Then she's gone, skipping into the dusk, her socks uneven and her joy unshaken. The clockmaker turns to you, the lines in his face soft with thought. "She's right," he murmurs. "Time isn't measured in ticks. It's measured in presence, in drawings, in stones, in moments too small for clocks." You look around the shop one last time, at the girl's clock blooming like a flower, the hourglass boy's memory dust, still slowly falling, the metronome, resting quietly on the piano, waiting for its next duet, and the drawing, hung crookedly, bravely, showing what time looks like when we stop trying to define it. Some say time is an arrow, but maybe it's a spiral, or soup, or a garden. Maybe time isn't something we chase or fear. Maybe it's something we tend. The shop is quiet now, You help the clockmaker put away the teacups. Fold the velvet cloths. Wind down the last of the clocks for the night. He hands you a small slip of paper before you leave. On it, just 2 words. Still listening. You place it in your pocket without a word. And as you step out into the evening, your breath clouding the air like the ghost of a dream, you realize something simple and true. Time has not passed. It has gathered. All the quiet, the kindness, the presence, it's here. In you. And tonight, as you drift toward sleep, it will tick with you, not forward, not back, but inward, to the soft center where everything waits to be heard. The clocks slow now, their voices dimming into background whispers, like lullabies sung through closed doors. Outside, the sky folds itself into velvet, stars pricking tiny holes through the fabric of night. A breeze hums past the windows, soft as breath, carrying the scent of lavender and stories. You lie back, your body settling into stillness. The kind that's been earned. The kind that feels like being held. Let go now of the lists, the ticking, the wondering. The clocks will keep time for you. The metronome will remember your rhythm. The rock will carry your sadness without judgment. And the shop, the quiet little sanctuary where time came to listen, will always be there. Waiting, watching, tending. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not lost in time. You are time, woven gently into this world with every blink. Every breath, every soft hello you dared to whisper. So breathe in, and breathe out. Let the moments carry you now. Soft as feathers, deep as dreaming. You are here. You are home. You are heard.